Hey mate, you okay?
Good mate, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just going to turn you up a little bit. 1 second.
Of course.
There we go. Yeah, how you been today? Okay.
Yeah, good man. Yeah, just I'm not. It's not that it's a day off. I very rarely have days off, sadly. But
Yeah.
I'm sort of doing a variety of bits because I'm sort of juggling so many different projects. So I'm sort of. It's a slightly more relaxed day. So,
Okay. Nice.
probably
Well,
won't leave the house today. One of those days. I think I'll just. You know.
yeah. Well, sorry for the delay. I've been painting this morning. It took a little bit longer than expected. So yeah, we're there now. um,
Where are you in the
Pardon?
Where are you in the world? Where are you based?
I'm in Berkshire. I'm near Reading,
Okay,
Berkshire.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good old Reading. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My partner went to university there. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's just down the road in a place called Bracknell, but yeah, most people know Reading.
Oh, Bracknell, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, I know.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. Just wanted to ask you a few questions about your career. So I'll
Cool.
start off with, could you tell me a little bit more about where you was born, where you grew up, and what it was like?
Yeah, so I mean, I was born in Westminster in London,
Hmm.
and I didn't live in London. I was born there, and I was raised in a place called Ampthill, which is in Bedfordshire. um, our family home there, and my mum is still there today. So my dad had been there for I think since the '60s,
Okay.
and he was also in the film and television industry, and he was a writer, and he wrote for lots of TV shows and films and things. So I kind of grew up
Hmm.
in and around the industry a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was it was hard not to not want to be involved in it. You were kind of because the dinner parties that my mum and dad would have, or when they have friends over,
yeah,
but usually in the industry of some kind, there'd be like stuntmen or directors or writers or
yeah,
actors sometimes and things. And so it was it was something immediately very romantic and alluring to want to be in this mad profession. And my hobby really, which I think is kind of when I was at school, like there was not even like a film club, and all I loved was films. I had very obviously had interest in other things, but I was so focused on storytelling and films and television, but films particularly.
yeah,
Um, there wasn't a great deal of you know love or support for anyone, or that there was any kind of career in the film industry, which now is kind of it's kind of insane. I mean, I know so many
hmm,
young people are going into the film industry in a variety of areas, and it's really inspiring to
yeah,
see that. But it just certainly wasn't something that was normal. I don't remember many people. I mean, like for example, in my school, we only had 4 people in the sixth form, which is now I think year 13,
yeah,
um, doing theatre studies. That's how. I mean, we had it was a big school, and there was only 4 students that wanted to do it. So everything was much more academic driven.
hmm,
So so yeah, I mean, like being around it, loving movies, listening to my dad and his mates, talking about filmmaking. I just sort of couldn't. I wanted to be involved in it. I didn't know how. I mean, really, if I'm honest, I wanted to be a Jedi. And I
yeah,
was like, how do I become a Jedi? Oh, I have to do this thing called acting. Okay, cool. So, and that was my sort of foray into it. I did lots of, plays at school and things, and outside we had like amateur theatre kind of companies, and so I would, go and be in those and sort of, learn that way. And then when I got to the sixth form, I really wanted to pursue a career as an actor because I just sort of found it was quite a scary moment. I remember my dad coming along to a production of Oh What a Lovely War, probably when I was about 15 or something,
yeah,
maybe younger, maybe might be younger, and sort of saying, look, I'm going to tell you tonight if I think it's worth you pursuing it or
yeah,
not, because I don't want you to sort of have, you know, a terrible lifestyle of following something that you might not have a skill set for, which was obviously terrifying.
yeah, yeah,
Because I understand what that kind of meant, and he hadn't really ever said anything like that before, so I knew that obviously he was taking it quite seriously. So I was like, oh god, well I better hopefully I'm not dreadful in this. And then he said, yeah, afterwards he said, I thought you were great and I really think you've got some talent for it. And so that gave me the impetus to kind of pursue a career as an actor. And then I was very lucky. I auditioned for a few drama schools, and one of them was the Drama Centre, London.
Yeah.
Famous for people at the time, I suppose, like Colin Firth and Pierce Brosnan and Geraldine James, Francis de la Tour. Yeah, there are lots of great people.
Wow.
Tara Fitzgerald, fantastic actors. I mean, credit,
Yeah.
The list goes on. And I got an offer, so which was completely a huge surprise to me, because I had someone in the year above me and someone in the year below me at school that were kind of child actors. They were kind of doing professional work in the West End or on television.
Yeah.
So they would kind of always get all of the main roles. So I never really had a shot of being like the lead, before going to drama school. So I never had. Maybe that was good, because I didn't come with a certain sense of ego at all. I was sort of like, I can't really believe I'm here. I feel like a total fraud, imposter syndrome. And then when I managed to get in and I turned up at Drama Centre, I sort of felt for the first time that I'd found my tribe. And I found the community that I wanted to be in, and felt like supported and encouraged. And because I wasn't a particularly academic person, and everything was always geared to academia, I felt sort of welcomed with open arms, and I felt like I discovered more of my academia, that I had that element to myself much later on. But that was really the genesis of that, was going to Drama Centre and sort of being completely out of my depth, and doing things that were incredibly terrifying and and out of my comfort zone, and I keep, I think, trying as I go forward in my career to keep putting myself in those situations again and again and again, because you always learn something about yourself, and sometimes it pushes you to do good work that you didn't know that was in you.
Yeah. What kind of work was involved to get your name out there and get recognised and get started in the industry?
Well, I mean, obviously, so training as an actor, my goal was to be an actor, and so I came out of drama school. I was lucky to get an agent, and then I started booking some work, and mainly I did a little bit on television, like Casualty and stuff like that, and then a couple of commercially bits, and then I got some work in the theatre. I got a season at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and then the English Touring Theatre, and during that, I sort of discovered, particularly at the RSC, they have camera equipment, and because you're in Stratford for such a long period of time rehearsing plays, they allow you to kind of pitch a film, and then you can go and make one while you're down there. Because while you're in the plays, you've got a lot of free time. Yep. And so one of the actors who was playing, we did Romeo and Juliet and King Lear, and the actor playing Romeo was an actor you might have heard of called Matthew Rhys, who's Perry Mason now in the new Perry Mason series. Yep. And in the lead in The Americans. Okay. And he was playing Romeo, and he decided to make a film, and we were in it, and it kind of blew my mind that you could pick up a camera and just go and make something. And this was sort of early noughties. This was before kind of the Canon D5 revolution, so 5D revolution, and then people thinking about shooting things on phones. It still felt like you needed a lot of money to make a movie. There was no chance of doing it, less without that. And that experience kind of opened a sort of, opened something in me to go, I'm not going to wait for the industry anymore. I'm going to go and make stuff myself, and see if I can make a name for myself that way. I just didn't, because originally it was to maybe put myself in something to help my acting career, but as I did it more and more and more, I wanted to actually make it for the story. I realized that I loved storytelling, and I loved being in control of the piece. So trying to make a name, obviously I was working as an actor and trying to do that, and doing any jobs that came along to help build your profile and your career and stuff, but I suddenly was branching off into this directing side, and that started in film more than anything else. And I'd make short films, and then I suppose really I started taking it seriously that I might start becoming a director more professionally, I suppose I'm going to say around 2014.
Okay.
So from there, I mean, I made short films before then, but I kind of was, you're not sure if you're going to do it or not do it, or, you know, like, I was still trying to be an actor more, but I really started to think at that point, maybe the trajectory as a career path might be more rewarding and better as a director. Like, I can say it's sort of been more of an upward curve, whereas acting is kind of like this.
Yeah.
So I suppose getting my name out there was doing these short films. I taught a lot as well. I used to teach at, I still do at drama schools and now at film schools. And working with young people all the time keeps helping you. You keep learning because you learn from others, and you get to practice your craft. You know, I get a chance. Like most directors of film, for example, don't get to direct very often. You know, they direct once every few years if you're lucky. I mean, if you're unless you're a television, you're a television director as well, and you're working all the time. But if you're just doing film, you don't get to do it that regularly. So working with actors and with crew, you feel a bit out of practice. So I'd always use teaching as a way of obviously directing and working the muscle of literally directing actors. And I think I had an opportunity. There was a company. I'm sorry, it's a very long story. I apologize.
It's fine.
I'm trying to speed it up.
No, it's fine.
There was a play, a company that I used to work for called Talking Scarlet Productions.
Mm-hmm.
We're now longer no more. But they used to do lots and lots of plays. And I used to do lots of weekly rep in Nottingham.
Okay.
I used to do there's a season there, which is starting right now. It's the thriller season where you put a play on every week, and you're in all of them.
Okay.
So you're in a few of them, either 2 or 1 to 4. I think there's 4 of them that happen. And you start with a bigger cast.
Yep.
And then each week they reduce the cast to keep the money down, so you have less time but more lines to learn.
Okay.
So it becomes utterly terrifying. But that process, within that, there were quite a few other producers that were actors in that, and I started working with some of them beyond that. And one of the actors, the first one I worked with there, one of the plays there was one of my dad's plays, which was Holmes and the Ripper, which was about Sherlock Holmes investigating Jack the Ripper. And Nicholas Briggs was playing Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay.
And I'd never met Nick, knew nothing about Big Finish. I'm not a Doctor Who person at all because I grew up in the era where it was off television, so it didn't really hit as a young person. So and I got on really well with Nick. We sort of built a kind of friendship, I suppose, and we got on really well and all that kind of stuff. And so Nick would get me in afterwards as an actor to work in Big Finish, so that gave me an idea of working in the audio world. So I was aware of working in it as an actor and working with these incredible, faces and whatever from television, and it was brilliant. It was a great training ground. But at the same time, with the other theatre company, I had an opportunity, having been in a lot of plays, to ask if I could direct one and direct. It was one of my dad's plays called Strictly Murder, which was a World War II thriller.
Okay.
And or pre-World War II thriller. And I really wanted to, because my dad had passed away at this point, to sort of, I'd been in it before, I'd seen it before, and I always thought that it was handled badly. I thought it felt very melodramatic. It felt like they were not finding the truth in it. So that was my sort of, my goal was to try and really treat it as truthfully as we possibly could, find the reality of the situations.
Okay. And
I was able, it was my dad's play, to make a couple of changes here and there. And that went on a tour, and me and my partner, we started a company to continue the run of it under Hello World Productions, when Talking Scarlet went under. And that was a very successful number 1 tour all around the country.
Wow.
And I was already thinking at the time whilst directing it, because I was travelling with it as well, that it would make a good film, which is one of the things that I'm developing. Well, I've developed it now. We're hopefully going into pre-production later on this year into making it into a movie, which is very exciting. But I had a friend of mine I'd acted with in another show called Wait Until Dark, Nigel Fairs, who's also a Big Finish stalwart. And I didn't realise Nigel had been doing so much for Big Finish. Because I wasn't in the Doctor Who universe, it wasn't in my consciousness or in my immediate in front of me, because it wasn't something that I grew up with. I just didn't know a huge amount about everyone's involvement in it, because I was just hired as a day player, as an actor, so it was just lovely to get an acting job. But Nigel came to see Strictly Murder, and then he's told me that he had this incredible audio drama that he was going to record called Shilling and Sixpence Investigate, which he'd written, which was based on his 25 years worth of murder mystery sort of plays that he put on once a month. 25 years worth of material, which was a bit more comedic, and he'd done the same. He sort of condensed it into a more sort of serious drama version of it. Okay. And he said, "I want you to direct it." And I was like, "Wow." I've never directed audio drama, but I've been in it, so I knew about it. And at that point, I'd obviously done the play, and I had also made a short film after my dad's passing, which was based on his last idea, which me and my brother, worked into a story.
Okay.
It was a horror film, Surgery. I don't know if you saw any of that, but Surgery is anyway. We made that in 2015.
Yeah.
And that had enormous amount of success in the horror sort of festival circuit.
Okay.
Nigel had seen that as well, and that was amazing. Sort of having that do so well. We opened at Fright Fest, and it sort of did a big tour around the world and all that.
Yeah.
And we still got millions of views of it. And it's if anyone is listening or watches this interview and is not a fan of horror, don't watch it. It is on our YouTube channel. And my company, Take the Shot Films. If you go onto our YouTube channel, you can see it there. But be warned,
yeah,
it is not an easy watch. I would say endure it rather than enjoy it. But there is a payoff. It's not all for no reason. So just stick. A lot of strong stuff. But so when Nigel saw Surgery and Strictly Murder, he wanted me to do this, and he campaigned quite hard for me to direct it, and so I went and shadowed. I knew Nick as well. I've been directed by Nick. I've been directed by Ken Bentley, and they welcomed me with open arms for me to shadow. And so I went and shadowed, and I kind of knew the process, obviously the other side, but it was really lovely to sit the other side. And then I was thrown kind of into the deep end. It was a huge script, a lot to cover, myriads of characters, and starring the legend that was and is David Warner.
Oh, okay.
And Steele Imrie. And so that was a real baptism of fire, was working with those guys. And I think because I managed to obviously not mess it up and do an all right job, I got offers from Nick and David Richardson if I wanted to do some Doctor Who's. And I started with Sylvester McCoy.
Okay.
Doctor. And then I think, it was that thing of, but I think because I did an okay job, I could handle it, and they just kept offering me more work. And obviously for me, it was like a joy, a dream come true to get to, again, craft, but in another medium. And then I would do other bits of theatre that would come out of, because Strictly Murder had done okay. I got offers to direct. I did a one-woman show at the Waterloo East Theatre with Jessica Martin, who I'd worked with at Big Finish, which was interesting. That was again a combination of working with her in our first one, which was the Monsters of Gokroth and Alien Werewolf in London and Moons of Volpana, that sort of trilogy.
Yep. So
we worked together on that. So it's all, it was all working with people I knew. It was all relationship based and sort of getting on with someone who would do that. And it was the writer of Psychic Circus, Stephen Wyatt, that said we should do this play together. So that was with Jessica Martin. And then, and then from there, Eastbourne Theatres asked me if I would, and again, because I knew Phil and Ben Productions, I knew those guys. They asked if I'd direct a play there called Beacons, which was a fabulous little three-hander about about Beachy Head and these three characters and their sort of connection to Beachy Head. Yeah. So all of this, sorry, I'm going on and on, but
keep going, it's fine.
It's a difficult way because it's all people I've known.
Yeah,
so really, who I know and who I've worked well with, or I've liked, or they've liked me.
Yeah, it's
We've
pretty
got,
much on what I'm asking anyway. So you're just doing it all in one. It's great.
I mean, that's sort of, I suppose, how I got my name out is just, I think in our industry, I think there is a lot of people leave it
Yeah,
because, not because they're not talented, because talent's really got, is low down on the list. I think sometimes it's endurance, because you have to spend long periods maybe not working very much, not making a great deal of money, thinking, I'm never going to get a break again. No one's ever going to hire me again. But sometimes I think, when you decide you want to be an actor or you want to be a director or you want to be in this profession, it's a life decision.
yeah,
And you're committing to the lifestyle, which could be, you could overnight become very successful and suddenly your pay bracket jumps up, but you could spend the whole of your life, a little bit of hand to mouth, but you're not. I suppose the thing is that we're all anarchists in a way. We're all sort of rebelling against, something to want to be in the arts, doing something, telling stories, and so, you're not. I think if you were coming into this profession to make money, you're in the wrong profession.
yeah,
I think if you want to go into the financial sector, or you go and do something where there's more of an immediate, easier risk management trajectory, what you would get.
yeah,
But in this, you got to be doing it for your passion because you love it.
yeah,
I do everything because I love movies, I love stories, I love theatre and audio drama, and and you're consistently being. I never know what I'm going to be doing weeks to week. Like I honestly, for example, today, I don't know what I'm doing in September yet.
yeah,
I mean, I have a few bits, but I have no idea what is coming. And there is a fear and a freedom and a sort of a joy to it that you have to trust that the universe will provide. And I think what it comes back when I was saying, if you stay in it long enough, you hope that you've put enough out into the universe that it will come back to you, and hopefully someone will say, hey, I'm doing this thing, would you like to be involved? Obviously, I think it's when talent and preparation and opportunity meet. You've got to be prepared when the opportunity comes to be able to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But you could be waiting a long time for that opportunity to come your way.
Yeah. I just want to go back to the films. Could you tell me a little bit more about the feature films and had the honour to produce and direct in your career with them?
Yeah, well, feature films particularly, or shorts as well? Or?
Yeah, shorts as well, because I read on your website that you had Sir Roger Moore. Was that the first one you done?
No, the very first film I did was straight after the RSC. I basically got a camera and I did a little film called Gone Fishing, and I wrote it. And I never intended to write because my dad was such a successful writer, so I thought, well, I'm not even going to attempt, stepping into that arena. And I think I'd stayed away from it on purpose because I just I don't want to follow in someone's footsteps who's so successful. It's quite daunting, So, and I wasn't particularly good at English or anything at school either. So, it was like perfect. I won't do it. But with Gone Fishing, I sort of had to because no one else was going to write something. So it forced me to write it. And obviously, I think watching lots of movies and things, and reading lots of scripts as an actor and working in things, I kind of got used to, maybe story structure, and growing up with someone that, I didn't really realise at the time, but obviously retrospectively, you realise you're getting an enormous education in film history by showing us films from all different eras and when the first thing was done here, or silent films or whatever it might be. Films that probably someone my age wouldn't have gravitated towards, but was I was being spoon-fed lots of different bits, so I was learning about our industry without knowing. So Gone Fishing was I was the only technical professional actor. Everyone else in it were basically my mates. If it's awful, if it's terrible, then I never need to tell anyone, and it's fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I can see if it works. And I wasn't even sure if I'd direct it at the time. I'd written it, and I thought I'll just star in it. And then I eventually ended up with my brother. We ended up directing it together. And my brother is an editor, and so we worked together. And that was something immediately that we found. To this day, we work together, and we have, we're part of Take the Shot films, which we started together,
Mm-hmm.
and we've made all together since then. But yeah, the second film, the Lighter, which is based on a feature film script that I wrote, which I was trying to get made at the time, and was very naive about what we needed. And, when you start, you don't know until you do things. And I'm very much one of those people that you learn by doing. I think I'm a kinetic learner. I need to do it to learn from it. And I'd written this feature that was a kind of episodic thing where it was the journey of a lighter through a period of time, and every time the lighter changed hands, the genre of film would change.
Okay.
So I was trying to I'll make one of them and see if we can raise the money maybe on the back of that to make the rest.
Yeah.
And so we did the romantic comedy, and this is the first time I did hire actors. Again, they were my mates that I trained with at drama school. So Stephen White, who was becoming a successful actor on stage and on screen, who's doing incredibly well now as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Knott, who's also doing very well as an actor in film, and he was always doing enormous amounts of commercials. And my friend Sarah Armstrong, who was sort of, starting kind of her career doing little bits here and there, and she's now in LA and again doing very well as an actress.
Wow.
And one actor in it, a mate of mine who's doing exceptionally well, Yusuf Kirkor, who's is the lead in that series Home. And he's in that new series Significant Other at the moment, and he's in Napoleon, Ridley Scott Napoleon. He was in House of Gucci. I mean, he's in so many films and series now. He's sort of having a real moment being in it to us. It's just full of all my mates that I knew would do it pretty much for no money.
Yeah,
They would do it for, and that was a real. When we shot that was kind of the beginning of the DSLR. Where you would shoot on a DSLR and you could have 35mm lenses on it, or lenses. You could change lenses and you could film on it. We didn't have that. We had an old sort of HDB camera. We were shooting on mini DV.
Oh, okay.
But we had to have a lens converter on top of it. So you had to have a lens converter that you put on it to then put photography lenses on it. But the image was flipped, so it was upside down. So everything you looked at it and the monitor was upside down. So all our monitors, we had to turn the other way around to see what it looked like. And then in the edit, we'd have to flip it all the way back round. So, but we were trying to be, cinematic at that point. And and because my dad had worked with Roger Moore a few times, he was friends with him, known him for years because they were shooting the Avengers in the same studios as where they were shooting The Saint. But my dad never wrote for The Saint because he was all busy doing the Avengers. Okay. But they knew each other, and Dad wrote the pilot for The Persuaders, which starred him and Tony Curtis. And so they were kind of, they were acquaintances, and not like best friends or anything at all, but they worked together. And so when I wrote this with the idea that this character had, in his head, he was James Bond, and my James Bond growing up really was Roger Moore. Okay. And so I wrote it with Roger Moore's voice in mind, thinking, there would be a vague possibility that he might do it. And I was thinking about the feature, not even the movie, even this, because I was like, it's a short film, we can't pay him, really, not easy to do it. Anyway, my dad, without us knowing, just wrote to him and just said, look, my sons are doing this thing. Would you, because it was just a voiceover, and he was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, oh my God, I hadn't even shot it yet. I hadn't even got anything ready to film it. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go work with Roger Moore. I'm going to work with James Bond.
Yeah.
So I went to the hotel that he was staying at in Knightsbridge, and he would give us I think 45 minutes of his time. Mm-hmm. And so we got to the hotel, went up to his hotel suite, and we opened the door, knocked on the door, obviously terrified, just me, my brother, and the sound recordist. And, we were all very nervous, obviously, but excited about meeting him. And he opened the door. And I know it's a weird thing to say, but he looked like James Bond. And what I mean by that is he was dressed immaculately.
Yeah.
It was just, and the first thing I said, I said, thank you so much, Roger, for agreeing to do this. How was your flight? Yeah, because he lived in Switzerland. It was like fucking dreadful. His first things that came out of his, and it immediately put us at ease. He was very, very funny and very witty and very self-effacing and all those things. And
that's amazing.
yeah, and he obviously moaned about him being, himself being a terrible actor or whatever, but he was brilliant. I mean, I didn't need to do too much. And it's funny, isn't it, that now I do a lot of voice work. That the first celebrity I work with is arguably still the most famous that I've almost celebrated that I've worked with is James Bond, was Roger Moore, and he was an absolute delight to work with. And so when we put his voiceover in the film, I think when the film came out, and again we were learning about festivals and all that kind of stuff, and we were learning, but everything that it got into when it screened, it always went down a treat because everyone would go, that sounds awfully like, oh my God, they've got Roger Moore basically to do James Bond in his head, which was fabulous, and it taught me a lot about storytelling, filmmaking, and what to do and what not to do. And from that, I really, really wanted to break the back of doing a feature because obviously shorts are great and they're a fantastic learning training ground as well. Yeah. But you can't really sell them. You can't really make any money out of them. And it just builds reputation. And I think now, because anyone can pick up a camera, you can, for very cheaply, you can get a camera, you can go and make a film. Anyone can go and do it now. It doesn't mean that they're going to be good, but you can learn, and you can learn what to do and what not to do, and all those things. And you've got YouTube or any of these sites where you can basically learn how to do things. It's quite incredibly powerful. We can all tell stories now that way. But I felt that I was kind of at the beginning of that digital version of that, and now we're in an AI version, which would be interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
But from that, I wrote a feature film, which we've not actually ever made, a horror film called The Still. We made a little sizzle reel, went to Cannes, got very close, learned about Cannes, learned what to do, what not to do, all those kind of things. And then was just, because I like genre pieces. I like, I grew up with, liking thrillers and horrors and, romantic comedies and psychological films and, film noir and westerns and all those kind of things, and sci-fi. And so I wanted to make genre. And it's weird because I do love working with actors. I mean, for example, when I teach at drama schools, when I teach at the Giles Foreman Centre for Acting, very kindly they've offered me over the years to direct lots of plays, and I get to direct things like The Cherry Orchard or The Seagull or something. So I get to direct, or a Dario Defoe play or something. So I get to direct sort of high drama in terms of, I suppose worthy drama, whatever we call it, but something a bit more complex in terms of human storytelling that is not so genre driven. So I get to sort of work on that in there, and then I hope that helps prepare me for when I go into something a bit more genre-based, which is where my passion is doing a thriller, but still come with that sensibility of realism and naturalism and storytelling and character, to be able to infuse that into more genre-based narrative. So I think it's all about continually challenging yourself and being able to, as I said at the beginning, I feel very, very, very lucky and very privileged that I've managed to be able to work as a director in short format, audio drama and theatre, and they all help each other, and I've learned it, and they're all different, but they're all kind of similar in storytelling. But as you were asking, about film, so from that, there was this play that my brother, I think, was involved with, called Dress Rehearsal, which was I think he ended up filming it for them, the film version of the play, and the writer of that wanted to turn it into a short film. And I watched the play and was like, it was 45 minutes. I was like, you want a 20-minute film or whatever? So I said, look, I'll only do it if I can rewrite it. And, bless her, Alison allowed me to rewrite her script enormously. And I would say I still got probably 85-90% of what I wanted out of that film. But she was funding it, so and it was her script, so she had certain stipulations she wanted to do. But again, that was my first collaboration with the DOP cinematographer that I still work with today, Fernando Ruiz, who is fantastic. I mean, he's just like a wunderkind. He's absolutely superb at his job. And when I worked with him as an actor, and I watched him working on other friends of mine's films, I was like, if I get to do another film, I really want to work with Fernando, because it's not about the image being pretty. He doesn't care if the image really looks awful. It's about storytelling. Why is the camera here? Why are we moving? What is it? What is the psychological reason for why we're doing this? And if there isn't a reason, then we've got to stop until we find out what that is, which I think, is when you're working with someone that's challenging you and making you better at your work. And so when we did dress rehearsal, that gave us an opportunity to work together for the first time. And from that film, there are still lots of people on that film that are working with me today. That we're slowly building our team. So I think it's taken a long time to find our team. So my composer, Edward Patrick White, has been there. Edward was in Gone Fishing as an actor.
Oh, okay.
He's not an actor, but he was my mate, and I was like, come and be in this film. And he has scored all of my films, and he is currently scoring our first feature film, The Waterhouse, right now. We're in post-production with it now. So it's sort of lovely to be nearly 20 years since we've been talking about wanting to do a feature together to finally we're doing a feature together. And Fernando a little bit later than that, since sort of, I say the tens, around 2012, I'm wanting to do a feature together, and now we're doing a feature together 10 years later, 11 years later. Yeah. So that dress rehearsal for me felt like a real finding my tribe, like I did at Drama Centre, but finding my tribe of filmmaking people there. Rupert Peddle, who's our Steadicam operator. He did Steadicam for us a bit on Waterhouse, and he was the camera operator for us on Waterhouse as well. So he's been with us. So again, it was a lovely sort of moment. But that gave me a real good idea, because it's the first. I'm trying to think. It was not the first, but it was similar to Gone Fishing, where you were dealing with multiple storylines and intercutting. So I learned a lot about. We were shooting on a much bigger camera. We were shooting on a red camera at the time, so it was more a film camera. So it felt a little bit like the professionalism had increased, and the crew sides had increased as to what we needed to execute it. We had a budget for the first time, really, to make something. Everything else was done sort of from favours and everything up until that point. Literally for nothing, and favours and goodwill and all that. And then after that, that's when I really started to take it seriously, because I loved it and I thought that we have a shot. And I remember my dad watching it before he passed away and saying, I think he was really proud of what we'd managed to achieve. He didn't do particularly well on the festival circuit because I think it was too long. I think it was sadly, I was able to have cut characters literally from it, we would have been able to bring it under 15 minutes. But I think the way that the film plays now, it's the right length for the right film, and it's about 20 minutes. And and unless you've got famous people in it, why would a film festival have a 20-minute movie when they could have 2 or 3 movies that are smaller and sell more tickets? I totally understand it. So, but I think whenever it plays, it does well. People like it. I think, and again, it stars lots of people that I know as well. That's a handy thing about being an actor, is I've got a good network of actors that I'm working with and directing that I can call upon. A bit like when people ask me to do something, everything's, everything comes that I've managed to get has been through people I know, really, or I've worked with, as I've said to begin with, and that's sort of how I work. And then straight after that was surgery, which I've spoken a little bit about, but that was sort of a passion project, and everyone came on board of that because it was my father's last idea, and so there was a lot of people that, for example, the poster was designed by the great Graham Humphreys, who is an amazing poster artist, who did the famous Evil Dead 2 poster of Nightmare on Elm Street, and he was a fan of my dad's work. He said, "Look, I will do this for you," and he did it for us at a decent rate, and it's fabulous. So we were able because of Dad's passing, to get people on board that respected him and his work and wanted to help out, which was again huge privilege to have that. Cliff Wallace, who worked on Hellboy 2, doing all the creature work, he did all the practical effects, prosthetics and things, surgery, so it looks fabulous because he came on board again for a much lower price than he would usually, but he wanted to help out. From the idea, the hard thing about that taught me everything about this is what I want to do. This is absolutely what I want to do, because when my dad passed away, I kind of stopped working because I had to, plan funerals and be there for my mum and all that stuff. And so when I decided to make that film, from the deciding we're going to do it to the first day of shooting was 3.5 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Of organising, getting everything, trying to raise money, and it nearly killed me, but it was amazing, and I wouldn't change anything about it, because of the experience. But it was utterly all-consuming, and we did a crowdfunding campaign because we didn't have enough money to raise to be able to finish the film and to take it on the festival circuit. So I was running a crowdfunding campaign at the same time as producing the film, and getting it up on its feet.
Wow.
And booking everyone, insurance company, all that stuff. All the logistics and the bureaucracy that comes with it. But it gave me again another more professional experience of producing, really, and of directing. And again, I used Fernando. My brother and I, we directed it together, and it was an amazing experience. Ed was again the composer. We had the same Anna Papa, who's now a very sought after production designer. She production designed Dress Rehearsal and this, and now she's gone on to do huge movies. Okay. And so it looked great. And what was also nice about it is we shot, because my family home, my dad had shot an episode of the Avengers back in the day at our family home, called Noon Doomsday. Nice. Which is hilarious. I mean, Steed hanging outside my window, patching my knee outside my bedroom window, which I find, very funny nowadays, retrospectively. Yeah. But he'd also shot a Hammer horror movie around there called Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, his only film as a director. So I kind of felt like it would be nice to shoot it in that area. So we shot it in basically my family home. There's a big barn there that we shot in. Give it a bit of cinematic, continuity. So that kind of felt quite nice. And again, we had stepped up a level. We moved on to shooting on the Arri Alexa at that point. Mm-hmm. Beautiful film camera, and I think that from that really was like, this is absolutely what I want to be doing, is making films. I think I love doing theatre. I love doing it, and I love doing audio drama. But I think if I had to choose one of them, I think film, because it requires so many of the skill sets of theatre and audio drama together, but with another one, which is the camera, the editing part of it. Okay. Control over the final product. So after surgery, and that did well on the festival circuit, which was, a real, because you never know, you have no idea if it's going to, do well or not. Yeah, yeah. And it really, it did. I think it surprised us enormously. We had people fainting in screenings. I was like, I wish I thought of that in the marketing. I wish we could have, planned it, but it just happened, which was, that happened a few times, which was quite amazing. Not that I'm, saying, that's a good thing. It obviously helped the notoriety of the film, obviously. And the people were okay who did faint, who were there, and they were fine. But that only spurred us on to want to do something else. And after then, it took a while to get anything off the ground. But we were pushing my dad to play Strictly Murder to maybe turn into a movie. There still was something that was still happening. Yeah. And I've got another film, a Western, that we were pushing really, really hard, and we were recceing just before COVID. And we decided to set up a company called Take the Shot Films, which comprises myself, my brother, our cinematographer Fernando Ruiz, and our producing partner Agam Jain. Okay. We decided to set up a production company together to make this Western, Fall from Grace, and then COVID happened.
Okay.
That was like December, and then COVID happened the following February. Or was it March? Sorry.
March. I believe.
We set the company up, I think, in February, March. In the late February, beginning of March, it was like the worst time to set up a film company because we couldn't go and make anything. So we spent a long time on Zooms, like discussing what we would do and all that kind of stuff. And it gave me time to rework the script again of Fall from Grace, and it gave me a chance to adapt Strictly Murder into the title now is On the Edge of Darkness. So it gave me a chance to kind of really work on those and get them and better and hone them and work on them. And in that time, we were looking at what could we do, given the restrictions, which was to shoot something in the UK, not leave the UK. So we didn't know if we were going to be able to leave the UK for a long time. So that's why Edge of Darkness became a good choice, because it's something it's set in France, which we could shoot here in France. We wouldn't ever need to leave here. But again, sort of finding locations, we were going on location recce's as and when we could. But one of the things we thought is Fernando came up with an idea to enter the Straight 8 Film Festival, which is a film festival where you get one reel of Super 8 film and you have to edit it in camera.
Okay.
So if you do your wide like that, then you do your close up, and then the other close up, then you want to go back to the wide, you have to go back to the wide again.
Okay.
There's no editing, you have to edit it as you're shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought that would be a wonderful thing to enter. And we were also looking at, because of the lack of possibilities of travel, we were looking into the technology of virtual production, of using the screen technology to be able to, build assets in the Unreal Engine of locations and not leave, being able to be in the studio.
Yeah.
And so we thought it'd be quite an idea to combine Straight 8 film, which is really difficult anyway, with virtual production, which we'd not yet used.
Okay.
And see what happened. And so we did an experiment of doing that, and we shot it. We shot 2 versions of the film at the same time. And these 2 guys that were setting up their own virtual production studio at the time, they helped us fund it as well as us, because they wanted to set up their own one. And so we thought this would be a great experiment for us to learn before they go and set their studio up, which is Ramaz Studios, which we shot with a lot now recently. Some of our partners as well, LED Stage and Abbey Wood. So we shot it on 16mm. We got a 16mm camera, and we did a couple of takes on that. And we had 2 Super 8 cameras, and we do one take on that and one take on this, and whichever one we thought was the best. And it was annoying because it started better on this one, and then slowly it started better on this one. I'm like, oh no. So we've clearly got to just send this one, because what happens is you send it blind. You never get to see it. You send the reel to the festival. They develop it. They pay for all the costs. You send the soundtrack and everything that you think fits it, or any sound effects or music.
Yeah. They
marry it up together. The very first time you see it is when everyone sees it.
Wow.
Which is terrifying, obviously, because it could be out of focus. It could, it could be anything. It could be awful. It could have overexposed. Well, you just don't know. So we at least knew that then we had these 2. We had the 16mm and the other Super 8 camera, which we developed ourselves, and we started cutting together the film to see if it worked anyway, because we thought that, it wasn't a really expensive film, but it wasn't totally cheap to do it. And if it all was out of focus and awful, it's a very expensive sort of gamble.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, let's get some. So we were able to cut that film together to have a look at it, and realised I think we've got something quite interesting, that we're using sort of one of the oldest pieces of technology, one of the newest pieces of technology. And I think up until that point, I'm fairly 99.9% confident that we're the first people to have shot Super 8 and virtual production, and maybe even 16mm and virtual production together.
Okay.
Because you got the grain and the image is not maybe as clear as obviously digital. The virtual production is a lot more, so it kind of works really, really nicely.
Yeah.
And anyway, when the film came out, I didn't direct this because I was in it.
Okay.
And obviously, only Fernando, who's shooting it, can see down the viewfinder. So it was made a decision quickly that he should direct it because he's the only person that can see it.
Okay.
But we, because you're not allowed to do anything to add VFX or anything, they thought we might have cheated.
Oh, okay.
Because the background is, it's not real. So they're like, how are they doing this? This is back in 2021. Anyway, we got accepted into the top, and we won there's 8 winners, and we were one of the 8 winners. And then recently, it was really lovely. We had a screening at the BFI where they picked the top, I think, 16. I think the top 16 films over the whole time since they've been doing this, since the 90s.
Yeah.
Edgar Wright once, and his one is in there. And they were very kind that they invited us as our film A Bad Day to Propose to be part of that, which was a huge honour. And they archived it into the BFI archive afterwards. Wow. So it's part of film history forever, which is quite. And they screened it on Super 8. They projected it on from the Super 8 reel itself, which was amazing to see that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that was the kick-off for a new part of my filmmaking career, was because Fernando, George and I had worked together. Fernando and Agam had worked together, and George and Agam had worked together, but all 4 of us hadn't all worked together. And Bad Day to Propose was the first project that we worked together on, because we were going to do Fall from Grace first until COVID. And that cemented our kind of friendship and our working relationship. And so moving ahead back into desperately trying to get a feature during COVID. Yeah. It's driving me crazy. Been trying years to get a feature off the ground. We were pushing quite hard with Edge of Darkness and got quite far, and had some cast attached and all that kind of stuff, and still looking for locations and things. But then actor schedules got pushed a little bit and we couldn't find a location. And so we had a gap in the summer of 2022 where we were going to be shooting or aiming to be shooting Edge of Darkness, which now we can't. Yeah. And I said no to all this stuff. I couldn't go back to these people and say, hey, that job I turned down, can I have it? And back again. So I was like, well, I've got to do something. And my partner at the time said, why don't you write something else? And I was like, yeah, I'll just write something else. It's not like it took me the whole of COVID to write a feature film, I'll just write one. And this was in May. This was May 2022. But I took up the challenge and went, yeah, well, fuck it, why not? I'll try. So I remember a friend of mine, another actor I did a play with years ago, he mentioned this weird house that his family own a part of. Yep. That he felt was so creepy that when he goes and stays there, when he used to stay there when he was younger, he'd sleep in the car because he hated being in the house. So I was like, well, let's go and see this house because clearly it must be kind of interesting. And it's a strange place in Suffolk on the beach, and it's isolated on its own, and they own a huge part of the beach as well. Okay. And so I called up the guy that owns it and said, I'm interested in it, and interested in making a film there. And he said, yeah, films have been shot here before. I didn't realise actually how many at the time. I don't know if you've seen the movie Yesterday about the Beatles that don't exist. Have you seen that movie?
I believe I have, but I can't. Was that the one where he loses his memory, or he wakes up and he wakes up and the Beatles don't exist? Yeah. I have seen it. Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, the house where John Lennon in that film lives, who's clearly still not dead because they're not famous. That house on the beach is that house. Where he lives. Yeah. I didn't know that. But so I went and recce'd it and was like, this is great. And then I had an idea based on the house and sort of an idea that had been brewing about what could we do if we had a house somewhere on the beach. And then I wrote the film to the location. So I wrote with all what we knew. So I went there with a couple of the team and we videoed everything and took shots of everything, and then I just wrote really quickly, and then we were like, right, well, we had some time because our partners that helped us fund Bad Day to Propose, who set up their studios, Ramaz Studios. Okay. They just opened their studios, their virtual production studio, and we had a weekend which we were able to film in because they were producing partners on the film. but that was the only time that we could shoot that. So I now had a shooting date and no script.
Yeah.
Or anything. No cast, no money, nothing. I just had a weekend which we had to sort of be filming something by.
Yeah.
Which was July. And we're in May. And so I think because I'd written 2 films during COVID, I'd kind of got into the mindset of writing.
Mm-hmm.
But I knocked it out so quickly that I was seeking cast and all that at the same time.
Yeah.
And when I would speak to their agents, they'd say, "Can I have a script?" I'm like, "You can have the first 30 pages because that's what I've written so far." And so, yeah, it was again, it felt like surgery, but on a feature level.
Yeah.
Instead of 3.5 weeks, it was, not quite 3 months, but kind of similar. And to get everything together was an enormous effort with that and that speed, but we managed to. And again, it's the same team, and we're now in post-production with The Waterhouse now as our first feature from Take the Shot film, Take the Shot films, and we're going to be going back to doing Edge of Darkness hopefully later this year, beginning of next. So, and then we'll probably do Fall from Grace after that, hopefully. So that's the plan. So the film we started with is probably the film we'll finish. It's so that's. I'm so sorry. It's such a lot. I feel like I've just talked at you.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm just going to move on to Doctor Who a little bit. You've already covered it, but how did you get your role in Big Finish? And is there a specific Doctor Who story that you're proud of the most or had the most fun being part of?
Yeah, getting into Big Finish was knowing Nick Briggs as an actor, and then him casting me nicely in a couple of early Doctor Who's.
Mm-hmm.
Sunlight and Lurker's Edge, and I think there was a Forbidden Planet. I think it was. No, not Forbidden. The Blue Forgotten Planet. That was it. Blue Forgotten Planet was my first one. And then, obviously, as I mentioned, doing the play, and Nigel Fair's wanting me to direct Shivering Sixpence, and that was my way in directing.
Yeah.
So Doctor Who, yeah, as I've mentioned, and I'm sure all Doctor Who fans must loathe me because I didn't grow up with it, so it wasn't. So I'm retrospectively learning about it.
Yeah,
and it's enormous. You think how long it's been going, 60 years.
Yeah.
Not really with. Yes, there was a gap, but not like 20-year gap. It's a lot. It's so much material. It's incredible, really.
Yeah.
But my favourites, gosh, I have a huge. Because I've directed the fourth, Tom Baker.
Yeah.
I've been in ones with the third, with Tim Treloar.
Yeah.
I've never been in a second or a first. I've never worked with either Michael or Steve Noonan. I know them, or I've met them, but not worked with them. I've directed Peter Davidson once.
Yeah.
I directed Colin Baker many times as well, and I've directed Sylvester McCoy many times. But I think because Sylvester was my first, and I've worked with Sylvester, so I know Sylvester more than the rest, and Colin probably, and now Tom. I've done lots and lots with Tom, as well, Tom Baker. So, it's really difficult. Ones I'm really proud of. Because you put your effort, you put your all into it every single time. I feel it's you have to come above and beyond every single time, and we all do it. Again, we're not doing it, for the money. You're doing it because you love it. You love telling stories. So you're always putting more hours than any normal person would probably be like. This is acceptable. You're always putting in more and more and more to get it as good as you possibly can, given the time constraints. But I think there's a Seventh Doctor one I've just done recently. It's a double bill called Far From Home. And I was really, really proud of what we managed to achieve on that. We really pushed really hard to to make them as not that we don't with all of them, but I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. And I think, particularly with audio drama, it's so much. What I love about it is it's so much about the script.
Yeah.
And all of the reviews generally are around the story. It's not as much about. I mean, obviously it's about the cast as well and things and the music and things, but it really is. It takes people back to what is the story, because your imagination is now populating the rest of it. So it's what stories. I mean, I loved those. There was that one, and then I really enjoyed. What's the one? I'm trying to remember. Oh my god, my brain's just
so many.
So many. It's ridiculous. There's so many. Hang on. Let me just check. I'm going to tell you because it will annoy me. Give me 2 seconds. I'll tell you. Not that one. Sorry. Just find it. It's another. There are ones that are quite sort of big and sprawling, epic. Because they're hard to do, but they're a delight to do as well. I mean, it's just. I think. Where was it? What was it called? Yeah, Silver and Ice.
Okay.
We did. I really enjoyed doing those. It was, because they were so different. I mean, obviously, I do the Avengers, and I direct Thunderbirds as well, and Stingray for Anderson Entertainment, and Callan, and and various other little bits as well. But I think the last 2 Sylvesters have been fantastic, and I'm really proud of how they've come out. I think if I can do it via Doctor, I mean, there are lots, obviously, that I've done with Tom that are not out yet.
Yeah.
Out for some time. So
I know he's got loads lined up.
I really enjoyed. I felt very privileged to do the latest 2 Toms, which were the sort of the Lost Stories, which was the Genesis of Terror and the Ark, because they're so beloved, and obviously we knew that we'd probably be under, setting ourselves up for a lot of criticism, and in particular with Genesis of Terror, which I think has received a lot of bad press and good press as well. But we put our effort into it. You put everything into it, and that was done during COVID. That was hard. That was done during that. With people on microphones in bedrooms and all that kind of stuff. So it's not that was not easy. That was a real challenge. Grey Man of the Mountain as well was a Sylvester McCoy one I loved doing. Again, it was a COVID one, and it felt really sort of Christmassy, and and it was kind of, I don't know, when we were all isolated, so it felt quite, But I really enjoyed doing. I think for Tom, I think the Ark in Space, that the latest one of those 2, I really really enjoyed doing that because it was so different from the televised one, and we got to put our own sort of spin on it, and then also try and keep the sound design from that period, and Nick Briggs did a fantastic job with the score of keeping it totally in keeping with that period of Doctor Who. So that was great, being able to sort of try and because my dad was great friends with Terry Nation, so I kind of feel like, there was a bit of, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. There's a movie up there, Unseen the Darkness, which you can see, which was written by Dad and Terry Nation. So I'm always going to let them over my shoulder.
Wow, that's amazing.
So that felt quite special to be doing that one. And again, there are lots with Colin that I've done that are yet to come out, which I can't talk about. But there are, I would say I think the latest Sylvester and the latest Tom Baker, I'm very very proud of. And you learn like the thing as I've talked about tirelessly and probably boringly. I just felt like I've just listened to my own voice. The more you do it, the more you learn about it. The more you find shorthands. You're finding a way. You're always finding a way, and every story is a different challenge, a different set of challenges. So, that's what I said at the beginning. If it frightens you should do it. Because you'll learn something about yourself. But so they're probably my favourite ones recently.
Amazing, cool. Apart from acting, writing, directing, taking up a lot of your time, do you have any hobbies you enjoy doing?
I mean, it's terrible, isn't it? My hobbies are like more. I love watching movies. Like there's nothing better for me than going, "What are you doing tonight?" Nothing. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch 2 or 3 movies back to back with my best mate or whatever. I like playing games as well, like a bit of PlayStation, things like Last of Us, Red Redemption, those kind of things. I mean, again, they're very story led. What other things am I doing hobbies wise? God. The gym, I suppose.
Okay.
I quite like doing that sort of headspace of, lift this here to here. That's all I need to worry about. It's quite meditative. I don't have it's not like I'm not like a big sports person, like, going like football. That was, so not, boringly, probably not a huge amount. Going out, eating out. There we go.
Eating out's a great hobby. Last question then. What advice would you give to anyone that wants to become an actor, writer, or director, or is maybe struggling to progress in that career path? You touched on this a little bit earlier.
I mean, God, because I teach actors, and I filmmakers. The thing that I discovered was, as I mentioned in the story, was sort of going and making my own work, and not waiting for the industry to come to me, but me go to it. Make it, or me not even worry about it. I'm going to go make my own things and learn and build on my own. And I wish someone had told me that earlier, or I'd come to that realization earlier. That because, for example, when I'm teaching actors, I'm like, the likelihood of you all being actors in 10 years' time is very, very slim.
Yeah.
Not because you don't have the talent, because you won't be able to deal with maybe not having the lifestyle that you want, and children and mortgages and all those kind of things. So you do need to find something else, I think, that also you enjoy doing. That could be a hobby that you can make money from, or something else that you could do. I mean, I know it's the cliche thing, because I think that, there are lots of people out there that say, just focus on that, don't have a B game. But I think having strings to your bow is not a bad thing. But I think going out and making your own stuff once you've trained, or not trained, but I think going out and learning what not to do more is a good way of doing it. It's just keep don't wait for the industry. I think, because every project you do, like, for example, I teach at the Rose Theatre in Kingston, which is quite near right now. I do a youth theatre, and at the moment we run a film course, and it's running right now. I'm going to go and direct a short film at the end of this week. And we've been doing that. God, I've been doing that for nearly, it can't be 10 now, maybe 7 years, 8 years, or something like that. And every year I get a chance to direct 1 or 2 short films with young people, and I get to practice. I get to keep practicing the craft. So I think it's trying to do things that, keep practicing, stick at it. I think that if you're thinking about doing it, also the thing that's different about it is that you could stop doing it for 20 years and come back to it. It's not something that, you ever need to stop. I mean, actors are in their 90s still working if they're capable and want to do it. You can do this until you drop. You don't have to stop. So, but I think you've got to manage your expectations, that the success stories that we hear about are the exception, not the rule. Yeah. And the regular actors, directors, whatever that are out there, it is tough. It's a struggle. It's oversaturated. If you're a filmmaker, finding what story you want to tell and why you want to tell it, and what interests you. I always think that there'll be someone else out there that this will probably, if it interests you, surely there must be someone else out there that interests. Yeah. I think following your instincts. Sorry, I wish I could give you a quick answer. I think it's following. I think that inner voice it's following your instincts, following your impulse. It tells you, like, your head will step in and go and start providing logic and justifying why or why not. But the little thing inside you that is the first response is probably the right response. And if you are following that, then you'll probably serve yourself well, I think, if you follow your inner child or your inner monologue of whatever, gut feeling about it. If that makes sense. But
yeah. Okay. Cool.
Don't be told no. Don't be told no either. You can always
Awesome.
you've got to be anarchic a bit about it. You've got to say no. Fuck it, I'm doing it. At least you can try. It's that thing of try. At least I'd rather have tried at it and failed, but I've at least done it on my own terms than be dreaming about it.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So that ridiculously long answer.
It's fine. It's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for telling me all about your career. It's been great.
Great.
What I'll do is...
Thanks, mate.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Craig.
All right.
And keep in touch, mate. Thanks
yeah,
so much.
Enjoy your day. I'll speak to you soon, mate. Bye-bye.